Hello friends. Today we have a special request we're going to fill. We're going to reinstall Star Wars Galaxies on my primary workstation. Then we're going to configure it to connect to SWGEMU, and then we're going to configure it to connect to another server. And that server is one we haven't connected to before, so I'm going to have to walk through the steps on this myself, and I'll take you through it with me as we go. So, I have actually copied I reinstall like every day. So, but basically I just delete the directory and do a refresh. Today's the first time I've done a complete reinstall in quite some time, and I wanted to go through the whole steps with you guys so you could experience it with me. Basically I have imaged my Star Wars Galaxies disks because reinstalling every day when I visit these servers is it's challenging to keep throwing the disk in the drive. I guess I could put it on a flash drive or something someday, but for today, we're just working off of the disk images. So first we get this antivirus notice, and this is all basic stuff. And here's the installer shield welcome. I agree. And then it asks us where we want to put it. Well, since I have my primary drive as an SSD, I don't install applications to my SSD drive. So I install to my data drive, which is my D drive. So we change that setting, and pretty much from here, it's pretty much a default standard install like you would see anywhere else. This part isn't as really entertaining as any of the other ones would be. However, a lot of people haven't seen this process before. And a lot of people will never see this process again. But it's standard. It copies the setup files where they need to go, and it displays some interesting graphics to keep you interested while it is installing. Wow, I remember the first time I installed this. For reals. Okay, and then that is it. And basically, even though the game comes with 3 discs, it only really cares about the first one. So then we hit cancel. Alright, so here, I have downloaded from SWGEMU.com the SWGEMU setup, and it's just called setup.exe on the server itself. So do not think just because I have renamed mine so I know what it is, that it is not, what you've downloaded is not the SWGEMU Launchpad setup. It's just one of those things where I had so many setup files in the directory, I actually had to rename it to SWGEMU setup so that I remembered which one it was that I was dealing with. Okay, and we're just going to repair it. So I think I forgot to uninstall SWGEMU. But it's not a big deal. It's the same thing. It comes up with the same stuff, except it basically asks you where you want to install it. And you just click on install. And that's all there is to that. And then it puts this really nice shortcut somewhere. I have too many shortcuts on my desktop. It's driving me crazy. So it puts this SWGEMU Launchpad shortcut on your desktop. So we go ahead and click on that. And it brings up the SWGEMU Launchpad, which is different than the Sony Launchpad. The Sony Launchpad does still install because you're installing Star Wars Galaxies, so you're installing all of the Sony stuff on top of it. Even though we're not going to use it, it's still there. This does confuse a lot of people, so be aware of it. Now it is telling me the basic checks failed. Please run full scan to try and fix the issues. Don't be concerned if yours comes up and says this. It's not a bad thing. Basically, there are differences between the SWGEMU setup because the server was reverse engineered and it's not the exact files that were on the server itself, so they need to manipulate your files a little bit. And this is perfectly normal as long as you know you got your Launchpad installer from SWGEMU.com and nowhere else. So you didn't download it from some link in Reddit, you didn't download it from Google Drive, you didn't download it from some other file share, so this one can pretty much be trusted. So we're going to do a full scan. And yes, we want to restore. our files to the original state, removing any mods you might have. Yes, we want to continue. And I want to restore the config files too. So it goes out and it downloads the things that are different on the Star Wars Galaxies emulator server versus what was in the directory in the first place, which basically means updating some of the TRE files and changing some of the configuration files so we can get a connection. And we'll let this run. And it is not a really slow install, so this should be done momentarily. So alright, game application settings will now launch, and we can configure our resolution and other things having to do with the server. Before I go any further, I want to say that most of the games that I play are Core 3, which is pretty much the same implementation that Star Wars Galaxies emulator is running. There are some servers that are pure NGE, and there are some that are pure hybrid. And once we get past this step, your results may vary. But we'll get to that when we get there. So you look in here and you realize this is a 32-bit program. So you can only see 2 gig of RAM. And you can see the rest of my system setup in here. My operating system is unsupported, but that's okay. It doesn't matter. I'm going to go into graphics, and this is where we have to set up our standard settings. So you set your video resolution, and then you set Windows mode, and then you can disable any of these things as you see fit that they need to do. But honestly, I don't really have a need to disable any of them. Let me look through it just again, just to be sure, because I don't want to say that and then not get it. We have sound, and for the sake of this video, I usually disable this, but for the sake of the video, I'm not going to disable audio. And I always check this because the Star Wars Galaxies intro is so long to watch every time. So I skip intro sequence, disable that, and I disable the character system level of detail manager. And if you have a joystick, you can set it up here. I don't have mine plugged in right now, so it's not detecting it. And these are, if you're having trouble connecting and caching, these disable pretty much the caching, the world preloading. So when you get into the zone, it already has the world all preloaded, and low detail characters, meshes, texture baking. When I played on live, in order to optimize my system for PvP, I stripped out all terrain. Basically, I just had wireframes running around, and I turned so many of the options off so I could get better frame rate. And on the Debug tab, yours should look like this. Crash logs never send. Include station ID, no. Hardware information, no. Allow SOA to contact me, no. Don't change these. Don't ever change these. There's no reason for you to change them. I don't think your crash logs would be sent anywhere, and I don't think you want any of this information being passed along. Even if you, like me, own the game and have owned the game, I don't think you want that information going to where it's going to go. So anyway, we are done with the client setup, so click on that. So right here, if we wanted to, we can look at different various things about what's going on Basilisk or the SWGEMU.com site. So we can update the status and see what is up with Basilisk and what is up with Test Center. There's the game settings again, just brings up that window, same window we were in. Mods, you can set your max FPS, and you can set your pre-pub 14 movement acceleration turned on or off. I usually leave it off. No, crap, sorry. there is a profession calculator. However, I found that most servers, this does not factor up correctly. Even Basilisk, this does not factor up correctly because my dancer is a master dancer, master musician, master image designer, and it says I can't do that. However, I am. So this does not pull your points correctly. So it's good for reference if you want to look through if you want to look through these things, but I do have all of these, and the basic one that comes in here won't factor that for some reason. I'm not sure why. I mean, you can overload it and go all the way up, which is basically what you have to do, but I mean, it says here I'm using 260 points and I'm not. So that's okay. It's there if you want it. It's not accurate. You can delete all your game profiles. You can check for updates, which honestly I can't say I've had to do consciously before. It usually updates pretty well on its own. Down here you can actually add other servers in to the configuration if you want to. This would do another full scan. If you're having trouble, you can do full scan. Multiple instances let you run multiple instances of the game. So if I want to start up the game and then I want to start the game again to have two characters online at one time, I can do that if I have that box checked. So now we have installed SWGEMU. We are ready to connect to Basilisk. We are ready to connect to Nova. And if that is our end goal, this is all we need to do. Other than going to the SWGEMU forums and creating an account so we have a login, because Basilisk and Nova do not allow you to create a character unless you have a forum account. And your login information is your forum account. So that works out pretty well. However, we want to connect to another server. So what we have to do is we have to follow the specific instructions from that server itself. So the server we're connecting to today is called Empire in Flames. And it is not a particularly popular server, I'm guessing. We have not connected to it yet. I'm actually visiting this server probably within a day or so. And we'll check it out. I'm going to try. Their website's still up, but there does not seem to be a lot of activity in the forums. But I'm not going to talk about that server. The reason I picked this one is because it's one of the more complex setup routines of any of the servers out there. So basically, it told me I needed to download and install SWGEMU after installing the client. We've done that. You've watched me do it. Now, we've run the full test. And then we have to download this patch folder, which is called Starsider, which I find interesting because it doesn't actually reference some of the stuff that's talked about. It should say Empire in Flames to associate it with the server, but instead it says Starsider, which I'm guessing is their internal name of the server. A little confusing, but that's not it. It will, whatever you got, if you look in the install instructions, whichever server you pick, they'll go through the steps with you, but I just want you to visually see them if you've never done this before, so you understand what it's like to do it basically from nothing. So we have the folder, which has a TRE file in it and 2 config files. And we're going to exit out of the Launchpad. And then we're going to take these files and we're going to copy them. And we're going to go into program files, Galaxies. Here we go. So here we are. And now we are going to paste those files in there. And yes, the files already exist. So the TRE file didn't. However, the 2 config files already do. So I want to replace them. So now I've replaced those 2 files. And now what we would do is, following the directions, we would run SWGEMU. Now basically that fires off the game. Now in this particular server you can't rerun the Launchpad because it will remove the EIF files that you put in there. Or remove the files for Empire in Flames. Sorry, I'm reading it off the page and I didn't click until after I said it. That's just their server name. Okay, now this server actually has a system where it says you can log in and it will create your account the first time you log in. I don't know if that's still current because the server went up pretty much a year ago. And shortly after was the last posting I can find for the server. So yeah, we're going to visit this and we're going to see what it's all about. I'm going to try. But this was one of the more complex ones to do. I don't have a downloaded installer for any of the other ones handy right now. But other servers have their own installers that you can use. It's just this one has these steps, and it's basically where it takes you to install. So that's the test server, which is fine because that's the only thing we got. Or at least that's the only thing we got invited to see from looking at this. But they have been working on this for quite a while. However, and this is why I'm not sure we're going to visit or not, or if it can, but they started working on it in April of 2015, and the last posts are from February 2016. Everything still seems to be up and running. Their files are still out there, so maybe the server's still out there. So we'll go see if there's any life on this thing a little bit later. But for now, I just wanted to put this in here so you could see how to install the Star Wars Galaxies client. And that is pretty much how you accomplish that. And that gets you basically into the game and into whatever it is you want to do. If you want to get on Rogue One, Rogue One has its own installer. You run the installer, it puts its own launchpad out there. You launch their launchpad, you get in the game. I think Rogue One had that, I'm pretty sure. I've seen so many servers lately, it's hard to keep them straight. Who had a complex launcher? Some launchers ask you to copy it into the Star Wars Galaxies folder yourself, like we just did. They'll give you a number of files to copy in there. If you're going to visit a bunch of servers like I do, it does not hurt to have a backup directory. So basically going into program files, I have 3 copies of my Star Wars Galaxies directory. So I have a good amount of backup. And basically what this does is it takes my folders, like my macros and stuff, and copies them into folders that I can keep. So I have all of my stuff here that's stored client side in my folder. And then if I need to re-add it, I can copy it back into the primary directory. And this is the one, or rather would be the one that I would use to travel with. Normally I do this in a VM, but actually sitting down and thinking about it, I realize that showing you doing this in a VM may confuse some people, and they may not realize that they're doing it. They have to do it exactly the same way. A VM is just a representation of a machine in a machine. So for a lot of people it makes perfect sense. But I have seen some things where I've done for some people where they don't understand and think that it's different. And I didn't want to add that level of complexity in there. So, anyway, this is the install of Star Wars Galaxies client. Then an install of SWGEMU.com, their launchpad, which is the one you would typically want to use if you were going to Basilisk or Nova. And then the installer of a specific additional server that we want to go try. So that's pretty much the story with that. And we will take that and go. However, if you have any questions I'd be happy to answer your questions. I think I've been pretty comprehensive here and gone over everything you need to know about what's going on. I don't think I left anything out. I think we've pretty much covered it now from start to finish. Getting on, creating a character, all the live streams that I did about playing a character, mission terminals, pretty much all the mechanics we've covered. I've got some other things that I want to do, and I've got some other servers that I want to take a look at, and I've got some other things I want to explore. But somebody did suggest that maybe I do this, so I thought maybe I would do this for you. And here we go. And there we are. And we're done. So anyway, I will catch you guys later. And I hope you enjoyed this, and I hope it comes in useful for you. Thank you much for watching. And like I said, if you have any questions, drop them in the comments, and I'll be happy to answer them as I can. Catch you guys later.